welcome back to Decker's Nursery. We're having a great month of October, experiencing a warm October or Indian summer, if you will. And the nice thing about these temperatures is it allows us to stay very active in our gardens. And as you know, here at Decker's Nursery, we put a lot of effort on helping our customers feel confident and comfortable in doing the plantings, and very importantly, that they know how to take care of the plants after they get installed. So today I want to talk about a topic that everyone's familiar with, but from working with a lot of different customers, I find that a lot of us avoid fertilizing because we don't feel confident or we don't know how to approach it. And so very often I'll recommend, I'm like, hey, you should be fertilizing, and it doesn't get done because they don't know how to do it. So I really want to show you today, and this is going to be brief. We can get as involved as we need to, but it's easy. And it can be an exact science, but it doesn't have to be an exact science. Like, I'm going to show you how we measure the amount of fertilizer. And if you're off by a little bit, it doesn't do damage and it doesn't negate your effort. So try to take a very relaxed attitude when it comes to fertilizing. So today I'm going to focus on granular fertilizer. There's a lot of different types of fertilizers that you can do. You can apply it as a granular, which is what we're going to talk about today. One of the other methods we have available is we have these concentrate fertilizers that can go into a reservoir that hooks up to your hose, and that's a solution fertilizer. And it takes a little, it's no more difficult, but it's harder to explain. So, and you don't need both. Neither one is better or more important. So if you feel comfortable after learning about using granular fertilizers today, the next step is just to select the appropriate product and get out and into the landscape and start doing it. So why do we fertilize? Because we're taking care of plants that are in our landscapes. They're not in the woods, right? They're not living in 100% naturalized environment where the environment takes care of everything. The leaves and the debris falls to the ground, it decomposes, it puts nutrients back into the soil. That's one of the primary reasons that trees shed leaves. It's their way of fertilizing themselves. But in a landscape, what we do is we rake the leaves up, we put them in a bag, we take them to the curb, they go into our landfills, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But we're breaking the nutrient cycle. So the nutrients aren't being replenished on a regular basis. And this is probably the single most beneficial thing you can do for new plantings and established plantings. So I'm going to walk you through some of the different fertilizer products that we have available. And I don't want you to get caught up on whether you should use holly tone or plant tone, or if we're fertilizing flowers, are you mandated to using flower tone? No, you're not, okay? So if you have plant tone at home, this is a good, balanced, comprehensive fertilizer for all living plants. It can work on flowers, it can work on trees, it can work on my new hydrangeas, and even my perennials. So you can get as specialized as you want, or you can just make it as simple, right? So holly tone and plant tone, the big difference. So this is a common question. They have almost the exact same fertilizer ratios, but holly tone has sulfur in it. Sulfur is an element that acidifies your soil. So for plants like rhododendrons, azaleas, acid-loving plants, you may want to use Hollytone, okay? The sulfur is not critical. It's an added benefit, but it's not a necessity. Most of our soils are naturally acidic, but it is a nice way to supplement that and make sure that there's no imbalances in the soil acidity, okay? The textbook method of fertilizing is you should always start with a soil analysis. And a soil analysis is a great tool. But what happens is it never gets done. So then the fertilizing never gets done. Fertilizer should be done on an annual basis. I advocate the organic line of fertilizers because it's good environmentally, but it's very difficult to do damage. I would have to take a large bag and dump it to do damage. So as long as you're pretty careful and not just dumping a large amount, it's highly improbable that you'll do damage to your plants. So there is a ratio, and I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. But if you can do a soil analysis, that's fine. You may need some help in deciphering what they're recommending. It is very comprehensive, and it may recommend other micronutrients that are not available in these product lines. The only exception today that I felt strongly about is I wanted to introduce you to a product called Biotone, okay? So this is an organic product, very safe to use. It's got a very low percentage of fertilizer, but the primary benefit is it has biostimulants, okay? It actually has fungi that will they'll reproduce in the soil. So you're inoculating the soil with a beneficial fungus that helps to increase root density. The Biotone is good any time in the life of a plant, but it's very important to use when you're caring for new plantings. So this will help to establish a more dense, a more effective root system for a plant. So I mentioned that we're in October right now, and I'll probably do this again in the early spring. But in the fall, plants' energies are all going below ground. They are developing roots at such a high rate, and they're setting those roots so that it can support a larger tree next year. As they start to grow, the roots will be in place. You've heard it before, as the roots go, so goes the tree. So if you're fertilizing in the fall, you're really helping to get that tree established for next year. You're going to increase the amount of root development, okay? And that's important, okay? So I really want to just kind of think the next step is what gets people caught up, right? So, and you can read the labels that are on all the bags, and they're going to talk about applying 1 cup of fertilizer per foot of plant, okay? That's when you're dealing with trees and shrubs. So this is a tree we planted earlier this season. This is a 1-inch caliper tree. It's about 6 foot tall. So I'm going to use 6 cups of fertilizer to fertilize this tree according to the directions and to maximize the results. So what I've done, so today I'm going to apply plant tone because I have an open bag, okay? This reservoir holds 2 cups, 16 ounces. So it cuts my work in half instead of using an 8-ounce cup. So I want to apply 3 of these to this tree. I'm using 6 cups because the tree is 6 foot tall. Okay, you're going to get used to these ratios a little bit. It's a little bit of decision making, but let's see if we can just really make it as simple and straightforward as possible. So a 6-foot tree is going to get 3 containers of plant tone. And I call it just feeding chickens, all right? And I want to make sure that I spread this out beyond just the planting area. And I'll tell you why in a moment, okay? The roots of this tree are out to here now. When we planted it, they stopped in here. Over the course of 3 months, those roots are now out in this area. And these are the roots that absorb the nutrients, okay? So that's 1 or 2 cups. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing out in here, and hopefully the video picks up. You know, I'm just shaking it out. There's no measurement in applying this. You just want to visually balance it. All right? Then I have 1 more to go. And I'm going to make this go, and I'm going to work out a little bit further. Okay? I want to make sure that I'm getting these other roots that I know are out there. Okay, we're going to get to the watering a little bit later. And, you know, I take precaution not to get it on the foliage. One thing you should be aware of, granular fertilizers are salts, okay? The nutrients are bound chemically. When water is applied, they dissolve and the nutrients become available to the tree. They're able to absorb it. So I'm gonna water several plants in a little bit later. So that should be pretty easy. New tree, 6 foot. If it's 8 foot, you're gonna use 8 cups of fertilizer. So that may look like a lot to many of you, and it's not. Like that's the appropriate dosage for this tree. I find that a lot of homeowners are cautious, so they use half, and you get half the benefits, all right? It's another reason why the organic fertilizers are desirable, okay? Because you're not gonna do damage, I assure you, unless you're completely negligent, okay? Another plant that we can talk about is I have some shrubs. So as you can see, I keep things very natural here. Partially by design, partially because I don't have time to weed and deadhead. But I always like leaving the flower heads for the birds, and hopefully you will too. But anyway, I'm going to fertilize. I have a new hydrangea. It's about 18 inches. So I'm going to use 1.5 cups, okay? 1 cup per foot of height. I have some perennials, some irises next to it. Now the roots on these plants are combined, so I can reduce the amount a little bit because I'm covering a smaller area. Another hydrangea, about 18 inches, so 1.5, 1.5, and probably, so don't go by height, go by the width of a perennial. Okay, so we have a perennial plant about 1 foot wide, all right? So this is how I do it. I'm sure there's other methods, but hopefully this will make it more easy for you. So I'm going to use 1.5 cups. Okay, and then I have 1/2 cup left. And same thing with perennials. The roots don't go quite as far as on a woody plant, but they are out away from the base of the plant. Remember, plants don't grow like carrots. The roots don't go down, they go out. And the more mature the plant, the further out they go. So let me get another, what did I say, 3 cups? So I need to use 1/2 here. And okay, And you'll notice that the soil is still very dry. It probably would make sense to wet the soil before I do this. And I'll just point out, this echinaceas is going to benefit a little bit from this application because now I'm into its root zone. So that's how easy the measurements are. When you have plants all growing together, you can add them up, divide it by 2, and that's the amount you would use, okay? But this will allow you to get started. It will allow you to maximize the benefits of the application. I did bring a hose over, excuse me. So I do feel that the water is very important. You know, I say that in every video. So I'm going to just end up saturating this tree quite well because we haven't had rainfall and it's been pretty hot, pretty warm. So this is going to allow the granular fertilizers to start breaking up or dissolving. And those nutrients are going to begin helping this plant pretty quickly. So one important message to keep in mind with fertilizer, you're not going to see the difference right away. You should never use fertilizers to fix a problem. Fertilizers are not a cure. We use them to supplement the nutrient needs that are not readily met in our landscapes. We don't feed plants, okay? People are fed, people eat. Plants utilize nutrients, so we're fertilizing, we're not feeding a tree. So when you hear the marketing about feed your plants, it's inaccurate. We're not feeding them. And going back, like this tree will not display like a lot of new growth. The leaves aren't going to turn a darker green. It's a very gradual benefit. Very often we will see the benefits next spring as it comes out of dormancy. We'll see extended terminal growth, we'll see better color, we'll see more leaves, but don't expect fertilizer to provide an immediate visual benefit. Trust the process, it works. And if you can get into the habit of doing a treatment in the spring and a treatment in the fall, you're protecting your plants. And whenever you're protecting your plants, you're protecting that investment. And maintenance is good if it saves you money. This is a classic maintenance practice, and it's one that we encourage all of our customers with existing plants, new plants. Don't let it overwhelm you. Do part of the plants one weekend, do another portion the following weekend, or do them all. Block out a weekend and do them all. You can't go wrong, and I'm quite confident you're going to see the benefits as you do this on a continuous basis. So I've enjoyed my time here in the gardens with you, and I look forward to seeing you in the garden. Have a good day.